$200, a Super Nintendo setup costs twice as much as the old system. For the money, the company promises better pictures, sound, and adventure. Now you're playing with power, superpower. You're the king, I tell you! The king!
Only for Super NES.
Only on Super NES.
You're listening to the SNES Podcast with your host, Soul Blazer.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Super NES Podcast, episode number 142 coming to you this time. I am Greg. He is my still pretty new co-host, Joe.
Joe.
Sorry. Yeah, I kind of blurred names there. Yeah. It's going to take a while to get like Georgia in my head.
I understand.
So.
I have big shoes to replace.
Yeah. George is still editing the podcast for us, so he's probably going to go to laugh out of that. But anyway, how you doing like tonight, Joe?
I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
No complaints.
So, yep. Very glad to be back doing the podcast again. Very glad to have you here with me.
Glad to be back.
We're looking at a game that Joe picked for us this time. A game I probably would have gotten to eventually myself anyway, because, you know, I was a big fan of the arcade game this is inspired by. What game are we covering with this episode, Joe?
We're covering Super Chase HQ.
Yes, which was developed and published by Taito, and just for the Super NES, and also for the Game Boy in a very slightly different version, but still very, very close. In December 1993.
Ooh.
So, this game is I guess I'd call it a spiritual successor to the original arcade game. I mean, the gameplay is similar, but there are differences.
Yeah, I mean, this one's done in a first person instead of kind of hung back a little bit, like the original. I actually like that first person touch to it.
Yes, yeah, it's very nice. So, I did not realize until I started doing research for this podcast that this is actually a pretty big franchise. Most of these games that they came out with, I either had seen once and forgotten about, or never even knew that they existed. So, there's more meat here than I realized. So we'll get to that here in a moment. Title we've covered before in the past, like in this podcast, because we looked at other Taito games before. Taito is one of the oldest gaming companies in Japan that's still involved in the video game market. They're best well known for franchises like Space Invaders, Arkanoid, Bubble Bobble, Darius, that kind of stuff. So, on a side note, if you've not played it already, Space Invaders vs. Arkanoid for the phone, Android and iOS is an awesome game, which I highly recommend.
Check that out.
Yeah, it's a complete game. There's no there's no in-app purchases. So because of that, the buying price is a bit higher than many other cell phone games.
Yeah.
I think it's like $15, but you get everything unlocked fully with that. There's no and basically it blends the two franchises together because you're playing an Arkanoid tablet trying to bounce balls back and forth to destroy Space Invaders.
Huh.
So
very interesting.
And Taito didn't actually make the game themselves because they didn't have any experience with the cell market. Curiously enough, they farmed it out to Square Enix, who actually developed the game for them.
Very nice.
Fun game. So Taito is not as big now as it used to be, at least here in the States. In Japan, they're still a huge company. They operate a bunch of arcade locations in Japan, very similar to Dave & Buster's here in the States.
Very nice.
Arcades are doing better in Japan than they are in the rest of the world for various reasons.
Yeah.
So, still good arcade market over there. But anyway, the game this is based off of, the original game Chase HQ, was an arcade game that they put out in 1988. And this is a game I remember very fondly from playing, in EOD arcades back then. So. It was pretty original, like for its time period. I thought, like, you know, the main gimmick of the game is that it's a racing game, yes, but you go through a bunch of stages and you have an objective in each stage. Your objective is you're trying to catch a criminal, and the way you do that is by trying to race better than him, to catch up to him, and like to ram the car X number of times to force him off the road.
Right.
And then you arrest him and move on to the next stage. So, you know, pretty original gimmick for the time. It's been cited as a precursor to games that came out later on that they kind of use this similar mechanics, such as like Driver and Burnout.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I remember this being like a fun game. Did you ever have any experience with this back in the arcades, Joe?
I remember the original Chase HQ. I loved the arcade cab. It was an upright. I never found the actual sit-down one. So I enjoyed the original Chase HQ. This particular arcade that is the Super Nintendo is basically a port of Criminal Termination, which is the third in the franchise. I've played on MAME, but never like in an actual arcade cab, and from the pictures I've seen, the sit-down cab looks amazing. Like, it's almost as nice as the Star Wars arcade cabinet.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, that I never. Yeah, I knew there was a sit down myself. I've never seen the sit down, which kind of a testament to how rare that
right.
version of it must be. So, but I didn't know that. Interesting. So, Chase HQ was very popular to get ported to a bunch of systems. It came out on like the Spectrum, the NES, the Commodore 64, the Atari ST, the Game Boy, the Sega Master System, a bunch of other computers. So very popular game. And so, as Joe mentioned, there were some arcade sequels. There was actually 3 arcade sequels, like this game altogether. There was Chase HQ 2 Special Criminal Investigation, which came out the following year. Which was which got some ports under a different name of Crime City in some cases.
Yes.
So that also came out with the Commodore 64, the Atari ST. The Genesis has a port of that, a very good port of the a very good port, like when I remember. Sega Master System, TurboGrafx-16, and some other computers. So, and then the third game that Joe just mentioned about was the more obscure. I never saw this one in arcades. Super Chase Criminal Termination from 1992.
Yeah, I never seen it in arcades. Like I said, I've played it on MAME a few times, and I've seen pictures of the cabinet. That's about it.
Yep, and this version of the game did not seem to get a home port actually, which is actually which is kind of curious. So, but. So other games in the series, there was also a quiz game that was released as a tie into the franchise back in 1990 in Japan only, for the arcades. So I'm like, okay, but also very curious, and I'm actually curious to check this out now. It's too bad. It's too bad the system is still having problems being emulated correctly. Taito released a simulation version of the game called Taito Chase HQ plus SCI. That's a mouthful. For the Sega Saturn in 1996. So it's like, I love simulation games. I'm like, simulation Chase HQ, interesting. So, check it out on YouTube. It looks pretty fun. Unfortunately, Saturn emulation's not very good still at this point. So, it may be a while before I actually can play it. So, they also came out with a Game Boy Color version of the game called Chase HQ Secret Police, which is kind of like Super Chase HQ, kind of a loosely inspired by the original game. So
that's a decent game.
Yeah, never played that one. The last arcade game was called Chase HQ 2, which came out in 2007. So and that's the last time. And that's the last game the franchise does come out. It's like it's been dead since then. So probably dead franchise at this point. One never knows, but given how long it's been, who knows?
Right.
There are other games that were released inspired by or kind of loosely based off of this game. I mentioned how before this game was an inspiration like the later Driver like Driver and Burnout franchises. There was a 1997 PlayStation game called Ray Tracers, also by Taito, which is which is supposed to be very close to this game. So, and then Criminal Investigation, which the second arcade game, took things a little bit further, further. That also had the mechanic of being able to rise out to pop out of your car and shoot targets.
Yes.
So that kind of added some aspects to the game too that way. So Super Chase HQ came out for Super NES and Game Boy. The Game Boy version is actually pretty similar to this, like all things considered. I mean, it's impressive. I'm always impressed by what the Game Boy is able to do. Yeah. With competent programmers behind it, and that version of the game plays pretty well. This one actually, I thought. I did check that one out briefly, and obviously it's graphically and gameplay lacking, but for what it is on that system, it's pretty good. So this game, you kind of have the same. The overall gameplay mechanism is the same as the original arcade game. There's 5 stages. Well, I should say 5 regular stages. So we'll get to that later on. Where there's a bit of story, like the front of each mission, and then you're like the original arcade game, you're sent out to chase down the criminal and force him off the road by ramming him several times. So. Joe mentioned the first-person perspective earlier that this game uses, which is very nice. It's small. It only takes up maybe, it only occupies about maybe half the game screen. I'm sure the reason for that is because of the tech involved. The Super NES just could not handle a full-screen first-person racing game like that, so they had to
the first time I saw the guy wincing in the rearview mirror.
The rearview view is a very nice touch.
That was a very nice touch. Like, I slammed into somebody and I just saw him go, oh, and I was like, ooh, that's pretty cool.
the damage, like the front of your car, you take damage too. Is a nice touch also.
Oh yeah, that's in my notes. That was one of the things that I was like, that is a nice touch.
Yeah. So, top of the screen basically has your stats. Gives you your time left, the score gauge, the hit points like with your car and the criminal car, like trying to get there, the gear you're in and the speed you're going. So, also there's a rough radar and the radar like distance, the distance gauge as well too. So, kind of shows you how far you have to go. So. And then you also have the, I'm trying to remember, I actually did not write this down in my notes for some reason. The symbols that are on the screen below the speed. Do you remember what those are for, Joe?
That's your nitro.
Nitro, yes, okay. Your limited afterburner.
Yeah, you got 3 of them.
Right, so...
I have to ask, there's 2 strategies in this game. It's either A, you use all your nitros to catch up to the criminal, or you save them, and when you catch the criminal, you use them to ram into him. Which one were you?
The first half of the game, I was B, because I was able to catch up to the guy with no problem.
Right.
Stages 4 and 5, though, I used Nitro quite a bit to try to catch up to him in the first place.
Okay.
So,
see, I got as far as level 4, which...
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah, because if you're a good player and know what you're doing, the game's actually not that long. The playthroughs online are under half an hour long,
right.
So it's like it's not a particularly long game. The challenge is just like trying to as Joe just said, get to the end and actually beat the stage. Mm-hmm. So, and you get points at the end depending upon clear time left, nitro left, damage you took, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So, So, yeah, very close to the original arcade game, just like a few differences, like I already mentioned before. The perspective being probably the biggest one. Mm-hmm. So, it also shows kind of like, it also shows your dashboard a little bit, shows the hands, like, show the hands spin the wheels and whatnot, the wheel and whatnot. So, nice touches. Graphically, I thought this game was pretty good. Not the best graphics system, but the system, of course, but very good graphics. They're bright, they're colorful, they get the job done.
I think they set the bar a little too high with the opening. As soon as you turn it on, It's like this almost Mode 7 road.
Oh, yeah.
With a nice background, and then it just says Super Taste HQ, and I was like, that's actually really nice. And I even put that in my notes. I was like, that's a fun little style that they did. And then like it started up, and I was like, oh, that was not what I was expecting. It still looks good, but it was not what I expected after being teased with that Mode 7 start.
There are many games that do that though.
Yeah.
So it's just like, this is hardly the worst offender. Did you ever play? I know you're a bit younger than me, so you probably never had an Atari 2600 as a kid, right?
Oh, I did have an Atari 2600. That was my first system.
Okay.
Yep.
Centipede for that game has a gorgeous title screen when you open it up.
Yep.
And then you go to the game itself, it's all like blocks, and you're going like, what? But because they tease you so badly with like that gorgeous menu, the gorgeous opening screen, and you expect the game to be like that, and then it's like it's pretty blah.
Yeah.
I mean,
yep.
the gameplay's still solid, but the graphics are definitely a letdown after that. Yeah,
no, I agree.
No, so. Yes, I know what you're talking about here. There is some variety in the stages at least, which I like. There's a city one stage, desert another one. The sun sets in some of the stages. That nice, add a nice touch of that.
Mm-hmm.
Bullets show up in your windshield. You show up in your windscreen to take damage. So a lot of nice small touches. We already mentioned the rearview mirror, which is a great addition. So
I think this is a great place to mention that fire throwing motorcyclists suck.
Yeah, some of the criminals are.
It was a nice effect,
Yeah.
But they suck.
Yes, yeah. Some of the criminals are very hard to take down for sure.
Yeah.
Because there really is no. I really didn't see a strategy for taking them out per se. Just kind of more like just try to catch up with them, tap in the rear, and then fall back and try again.
Right. Yeah, I was the save up 3 nitros and just keep nitroing them while I was bumping them, and I mean it worked. Up until I got to the 4th stage, where I pretty much lost.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
So I hear
I
heard there's a helicopter that just shoots the hell out of you at some point. So.
Yes, the last mission's boss is a helicopter.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's pretty difficult, for sure. So, the game also has different difficulty settings at least, which is nice.
Yes.
I mean, the game gets fairly difficult, but I think overall the difficulty is pretty fair. I mean, this is the kind of game I really didn't feel like there was any cheap deaths. Like most racing games, it's just a case of playing the stage several times until you get the hang of it.
Right.
I figure out where everything is. So, I really didn't think this game was cheap in that sense.
No, I definitely felt like I died and was not able to complete level 4 because of my inaccuracies, not the game.
Right. Yeah. So, graphically the game actually looks pretty close to its arcade original. With those differences of viewpoints, of course. But, do you have anything else that you want to say about the graphics before we moved on, Joe?
Let's see in my notes. No, I mean graphically we already talked about everything.
Okay.
So,
music. So the music and sound effects of this game is decent. I mean, it's not great, but it's okay to play. But have the background like you're playing it. So
I'm just gonna say right now, the voice samples blew me away.
The voice samples are very good. Yes.
I was shocked.
I mean, this was not the first Super NES game to have voice samples, but it certainly is one of the ones that had still used them the best. So. Yeah, voice samples are very high quality, so that was definitely a nice touch.
And I like the music. I'm actually thinking about trying to find the soundtrack or at least the WAV files or something.
Really?
It's very enjoyable.
Okay, I guess you liked it better than I did. So, there actually was. I actually found this. My research. I was going to mention this toward the end. It's kind of like a trivia bit, but it seems appropriate here. there's an English rock band called Saint Etienne, I think is how you pronounce it.
Okay.
They actually released a demo dance track called Chase HQ, inspired by music and which samples voices and music like the games.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, that track was released as a bonus track on the 2009 reissue of their 1991 song. Album Fox Space Alpha. So
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, interesting. So, I mean, like, it's appropriate music, appropriate racing for racing music. I mean, like, it's not F-Zero quality because F-Zero just has an amazing soundtrack, but
agreed.
It's fine for what it is.
Yeah.
So, controls felt fine to me with this game. I didn't really have any like major problems with that.
Yeah, I had no problem with the controls. Like I said, the fire throwing motorcycle guys, I felt I felt like I could not dodge their Molotov cocktails. Like, no matter what I did, even if it missed me, like, it would hit the ground, it would create fire, and I would still somehow take damage. But it's a little bit hard to. Yeah, the downside about the perspective that they use is it's like a little hard to gauge distance sometimes. Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I could definitely see that. I did not have that problem myself. I definitely so I certainly can see, like, thinking you moved far enough out to the side, but the game's like, nope, you haven't.
Right.
So I mean, I definitely can see that. So I mean, you also get like little graphical cutscenes like between like missions and whatnot. Kind of like showing there is a plot in this game, like a very basic plot, but there is one at least. So,
I was gonna say on my notes I put the story is weak, but honestly, it doesn't matter.
Right. I mean, yeah, because like they give you at least, it's like, they give you. They give you motivation as like, okay, why are we chasing after Sky? And in really for a game like this, that's all you need. It's like, so it's like,
they're
okay,
like, this guy beat up a 5-year-old and stole his candy. Go get him. It's not that bad, but you get the idea.
Right. So actually, speaking about that, there is actually a bonus six mission like this game. To get there, you have to finish the game without using continue.
Okay.
And then so if you do that, when the game ends, you get the ending starts with like a top down view of your car driving down the road to go to HQ to hand your report. When you get flagged down by a medic, their ambulance crashed on the way to the hospital with a critical blood what do you call it?
Like a transplant?
Like a blood bank transport. They have some critical blood they have to get to the hospital right away for an operation, like for a kid. So the bonus mission of the game is you trying to get to the hospital on time.
Gotcha.
So there's no enemies per se in that mission. They're just kind of like outside the cars, of course, but you're trying to like race to the hospital in time to do that. So the Japanese version of the game was much harder to unlock that bonus mission. By the way, you had to beat the game in hard mode in the Japanese version of the game, and you could only unlock hard mode if you play the game first in normal mode. So you had to beat the game twice in Japan to be able to get to their point. So
that gives me Ghost and Goblins flashback.
Yeah, I'm glad they changed that some like for the U.S. release at least. But I forgot to mention this earlier. Sorry. Speaking about Japan, the game did get a worldwide release. The game, the game also got released in PAL territories as well. But Japan, the game is known as Super HQ Criminal Chaser. So that was its name in Japan territory.
Right to the point.
Well, the Japanese always have kind of like strange names for their games. Like for example, Chase HQ 2 that I mentioned before, the last arcade game in the series. That was released in Japan as Chase HQ. I'm going to try the Japanese here. Nancy Yori Kingaru Renkuru, which translates to like an urgent call from Nancy.
Oh, okay.
And you're going like, okay, I guess that gets the point across, but so at least the game in the States, they just call it Chase HQ 2 because I'm like, yeah, make this simpler, but
To our Japanese listeners, I love your culture. I just want you to know that.
So overall, this is a pretty interesting game. I mean, like I said before, it's short if you know what you're doing. The replay value of this game is pretty limited, I think. It's definitely not a game you're going to go back to on a regular basis. If you enjoy racing games, however, and or you're a fan of other Chase HQ games, this is a pretty well done game. I mean, like, it certainly captures the essence of the arcade game in it.
Yeah, like I had said off, Mike, it's fun, but it's repetitive, and therefore, the replay value is just not there. This would be one of those, like, oh, I played it, I had fun with it, I probably won't go back to this game, for like another year or so. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah. So, I mean, like, because really the best you can do is, like, shoot for high score, but, like, like with a game like this, like, who cares about that usually? So, yeah, I mean, like, most people don't.
I would feel bad for any kid who got stuck with this and unfortunately, fell into that whole, like, you don't get a new game until it's their birthday or Christmas. Like,
yeah,
I would feel bad if they had gotten this game because this is like a weekend renter, at best.
This would be a great rental game,
right.
Yes, but because
especially if you have some friends over and you guys just take turns trying to get that high score. But yeah,
right. Yeah.
As far as the long term, like possible 6 months, you got to play this thing before you get a new game. I hate my parents, I'd tell you that.
Right. So I mean, so there are like dedicated racing games per se on the system. I mean, we already mentioned F-Zero.
Right.
There's also the Top Gear series, which is very good.
Yes.
But there's also one of the very few games to use the Super FX chip. What's that game called? Super Racers or something like that.
You thinking of Stunt FX?
Oh yes, yeah. So that's a motorcycle instead, but it's kind of the same thing pretty much.
Yeah.
There actually are quite a few Super Chase racing games in the system. So which is not a genre the system was really known for. I think that I think most people look at Genesis like more fondly for like racing games, but because because Genesis was a faster processor, so it could handle games like this better.
Right.
So, but considering the limitations of the system, and they were trying to capture like the capture the essence. Like I said before, the programmers were trying to capture the essence of the arcade game, and they pretty much, and for the most part, they succeeded.
Oh yeah, they definitely did. I applaud them for that.
So yeah, so anybody who's a fan of the series definitely should check this game out. Like Joe said, it's a fun short-term game. Definitely has some challenge. Definitely keep you busy for a while. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. I mean, like, if you got this game later on, for the you out of the bargain bin for like $10-15, that wouldn't have been that bad. But,
yeah.
Because you probably would have gotten other games too at the same time.
Hopefully.
That's true. So, but yeah. And speaking about that, this game is actually pretty uncommon, like on eBay, and because of that, the prices are pretty good for this game. Higher than expected. Well, cart is not that bad.
Right.
But, I found 10 copies of the game being listed when I checked. 11 copies of the game like recently sold Card only version of the game. These prices include shipping, sold anywhere from $8 to $20, which is like pretty typical Super NES price range.
Yeah, I mean, $8 for this is bad. $20, I'd pass it up.
Well, for collectors, this game's much harder to find and much more expensive. There was only one cart manual. There was only one cart manual version that sold recently, and one CIB version that sold recently.
Oh, okay.
The cart manual sold for $40. The CIB sold for $70.
Wow.
So
I mean,
so
even for CIB though, that's kind of low. You know what I mean? Like that's
depends. It varies a lot depending upon the game. Super NES prices have come down a lot in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
The bubble system had been going throughout the mid part of the decade. It's cooled some now. So Super NES prices are not quite as high as they used to be.
Our current situation isn't helping either.
I should say the pandemics. the pandemic also caused prices across the board to go up, regardless of what system that it is.
Right.
I mean, because I have friends who are trying to find a Switch, and good God, forget about that like right now. So
I know. If I wanted to,
you cannot
unload my Switch, I could get like $600 if I was like a beast, but I won't do that.
apparently, because the light version, of what I understand, is actually not that bad. People can find that.
Yeah,
just
apparently those are available, but it's the full size ones that are hard to find.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I guess it depends on what you're looking for. Because like if you're happy with the light version, you just want to play in handheld mode.
Right.
You can still get those, but
Yep.
if you want to dock it, and other things, it's like because I was going to buy a Switch before all this started, and then I'm like, I saw the prices jumping. I'm like, I'll just be happy with what I have right now. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got lucky. I bought my light like literally the week the pandemic thing started. Like I just happened to be in Walmart, and like it was like the last one on the shelf. So I wasn't really looking for the light, but it was my only option, so I bought it. And then in like the end of April, early May, I walked into a Walmart just to do some food shopping, and just happened to go buy electronics, and they had 2 full-size Switch models in the cabinet, and I didn't even think twice. I spent $350 on it right then and there. So, but just be patient. Anybody who's listening who's looking for a Switch, just be patient. Don't pay these outrageous prices. They're out there. They're being restocked. I was at Walmart today here in Fall River, Massachusetts, and they had a Switch in stock. I'm sure it didn't last long after I left the store, but they had one, so they are showing up. It's slow trickle.
Yeah, Nintendo's not helping the situation any because Nintendo's up to its own tricks.
Right.
Like they always release like a minimum of hardware and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're artificially like they're not like Sony and Microsoft. Like those companies will crank systems out, for as long as there's demand.
Right.
For Nintendo and their stuff, they make it very, they always do like very limited runs and that's it.
Yeah,
so,
and I see a lot of anger towards Nintendo, but to be honest, like around me, I haven't seen any Xbox Ones, I haven't seen any PS4s. Like it's because of this, like all the systems are sold out. So
yeah. I mean, like I haven't seen any new in like stores like Walmart or Target, but GameStop still has them in stock. So
well, of course, GameStop, has been stocking up on those consoles for the past 5 years.
Yeah. So you can still find them. It's just a matter of like, but yeah, they are a bit more difficult. And also the fact that I know Microsoft stopped production on the Xbox. I think I don't know if Sony has stopped on the PS4 yet.
Right.
Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. I don't know, but. So, obviously, if they stop making new systems, that's also going to affect supply too.
Right,
so.
right.
But actually, speaking about Nintendo and their policies about like limited runs, this is actually a great tie into something I wanted to mention here toward the end as a PSA for anybody out there listening, because Joe and I both recently took advantage of this, and Nintendo's doing Nintendo's not advertising this like one bit, for reasons I suspect. I know why, but I'm not going to go with that whole conspiracy route thing like right now. So, they have available on their website right now, Nintendo of America, refurbished, which is almost the same thing as new, basically, NES and Super NES minis. So if you missed them when they were out in stores a few years ago, head on over to the Nintendo website and like check them out. You have to search. They're not on the front page, like I said. Nintendo makes them kind of hard to find. You really have to like search for them, but they are on there, and like they are like in great shape. I picked up a Super NES mini from a mini recently from a coworker who was selling hers, and I'm like, well, because I'm such a completionist, I got this one. I have to get the NES mini now too. And somebody on Facebook tipped me off the fact that Nintendo had them on the website. So, and Joe, you recently bought both the systems like them, both the systems like from them too. So.
And they're, just as they were when they were released in the stores. The Nintendo controller is super short. Yeah. And the only difference is that it doesn't come in like the box. Right. It's just a brown box with a label slapped on it. Which, you know what? That's great because that deters resellers from going and picking these up on the website and then trying to flip them online for more than what they're worth.
Yep.
So,
yep. And then so the systems, I don't know exactly what made them refurbished. Nintendo mentions that the these systems all came back to them. They were checked out, made sure they worked, and then shipped back out again. Nintendo hardware is very hard to break. So I really don't know what happened to these systems to cause them to be refurbished. But whatever it is, they're in great shape. They come with a 1-year warranty. So yeah. The prices are the same prices, I believe, the same prices that they were when they originally came out. It's 50 for the NES and 70 for the Super NES.
Yeah, the Super NES I think was 80, and I think the NES Classic 60 when it came out. So it's
a little bit cheaper
less.
then. Yeah. The reason the Super NES Super NES Mini is more expensive, like it becomes basically comes with a second controller.
Right.
Whereas the NES Mini only has one.
Yep.
You can still find the third-party control. I'm sorry. You still can find controllers out there on eBay or whatnot, but but you have to pay. You'll pay a bit more for them.
Yeah,
so,
my buddy said to me the other day. He goes, "Oh, I found a NES Mini dirt cheap," and I said, "Yeah." So he sends me a picture. So it's $45. He bought this thing on eBay, $45. I look at the picture. It's the NES Classic controller. Not the system. So I inform him of it, and then he's like, "Really, $45 for just the controller?" And I said, "Yeah." I said those were like very limited produced, and they sold out, and like nobody can get them. And the fact that they come with a nice 6-foot wire compared to the 2-foot that they gave us, then makes them even more enticing.
Well, I got around that because of the fact that I still have an original dog bone style controller, so I just bought what's the company's name that makes the Retrons?
Hyperkin.
Yeah, Hyperkin makes an adapter that you can use to plug in your original NES controller to the Mini. So that's what I did. So
yeah, my buddy Corey actually ended up fixing his problem. He finally got an NES Mini, and he bought a 10-foot extender.
Oh, nice.
Well,
okay,
when he ordered it, it was actually for 2. So he gave one to me. So now I have a 10-foot extender, which I've been using to be able to sit on my chair and relax away from the TV instead of like up in front of it.
So the NES controller, I think maybe a little bit smaller than the original version of it. I'm not really quite sure about that because it's been so long since I handled an original NES controller of that style. Like I said, the one I have now is dog bone style.
If it is smaller, it doesn't matter. It still feels comfortable in your hand, and that's all that matters.
The Super NES controllers, the Super NES controllers that came with the Mini, I compare those to the Super NES controllers I still have.
Yeah.
They're perfect in almost every way.
Oh, okay.
They're the same size. Same size, same shape. The buttons, the buttons on them are just as responsive. Yeah. The only thing, the only difference I saw was that the new controllers are a bit lighter. Okay. I guess because technology has gotten better in the last 30 years. Right. So they're not quite as heavy as the original controllers are. But yeah, beyond that, they're great. These are also very easy. These are also very easy systems to mod if you want to. There's a program out there which is called what's it, Joe? Hakchi? Hakchi, yes.
It's
which you can use to mod the NES, Super NES, and Genesis Minis if you want to. It basically just like flashes onto the system a new version of the a new version of the operating system, and that's like that. So the original games are still on there, but then you can go ahead and tack on additional games, and you either can use the internal memory the system comes with, which is enough to hold. Oh, in my case, the Super NES Mini, there was enough room on there for now 300 games. Or you can also use an external USB drive, and you'll download everything to that instead, and plug into your Mini that way if you want to. Very easy to do. The only, and after that, when you load up your Mini, it's a little bit slower to load up now because of that flash screen that it uses, but once you're in, you can just you either can go to the original games, or you can also go to the other games. You can specify how you want the new games to appear. The default method is just to put X number of games in alphabetically arranged folders. So they work the same way. They have like the graphics, the save state functions. They're all there. So most games will run fine with the original emulator. If you ever do have a problem with that, there are also available on that site cores that you can download for additional Super NES emulators, and just simply change it over to run off that emulator instead if you want to. You also can run other systems games on there too, and this is the one area where I ran into problems because this is not advertised very well. So again, I'm gonna mention this out here in case anybody's listening to it. If you want to play other systems games on Super NES or your NES or Genesis Mini for that matter, because they have cores out there for every other system out there. It looks like, from what I can tell, Atari systems, GBA, DS, Intellivision, ColecoVision, they're all out there. If you want to play those, you have to download an overarching, updated hardware. Basically, I guess, the operating system. You have to download and install that first. Then you can download and install the core that you want for that system, and then you can. Because I was having a problem trying to get Game Boy games to run on my NES Mini until I realized that I'd do that. So, yeah, most guys out there don't mention that fact. So I'm just mentioning this. That this here is kind of like a PSA. But yeah. Overall these systems are very easy to mod. So if you wanted to get one back when they came out and missed it for whatever reason, I don't know how long. So there's no indication as to how many of these things Nintendo has in stock. No indication that they're gonna run out. So I suggest getting over to the website ASAP and picking one up if you want to. The shipping in the US is $5 plus tax. It comes by I think it was UPS, Joe.
UPS.
Am I right? And Canada ships like Canada Post. They will only ship to US and Canada, by the way. So just have that. So just keep that in mind. And I mean, like I said before in the past, Super NES Mini is not really necessary for people, like Joe and myself, who were already hardcore emulator users. But it's a very nice thing to have around. It's also very good to give somebody who maybe has not played games for like 20, 30 years, because it's just plug and play. You get them like, okay, here you go, and they can play Zelda again or Mario again, or whatever. So it's great for that aspect. And also the system is very, very cute.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little bit. It's like a little tiny like version, like the the original system. It's great looking. Yeah. But the power and reset switches on these things still work. Power is how you turn it on and off. Reset by default resets how you resets how you start playing a game and save this save your progress. You can't change that with Hackgy if you want to the controller, so to a control combination if you if you desire to. But that's the default. The default function is just the reset button, which Joe had a problem with earlier tonight, unfortunately, to his detriment. So yeah.
Make sure you hold Y and not press A, or you'll lose 2 hours of Chrono Trigger.
But the minis do have a very great. The minis do have a function that most emulators don't. They also have a rewind function, which is great. Yeah. You actually can play back several minutes of your game, which is great for trying to figure out how they screwed up, where did this come from, that kind of stuff. Great feature. So it's definitely a very positive in the system. So, but like I said before, controllers are almost perfect replicas, and the Super NES Mini comes with two as opposed to one on the NES, so you can have two. So it's much easier to have somebody over to play with you if you want to. So
I think when they made the decision that Street Fighter was going to be included, they were like, we need to include a second controller.
There's a bunch of other two-player games on there too. There's the Kirby game, Super Mario World, 2 players.
Right.
I think Secret of Mana supports a 2-player function for some. I think it's been a while since I played that game. The Final Fantasy VI does. You can have, a second person can play some of the characters. During the battle scenes.
I didn't know that.
So it's not very well advertised. But so. Yep. So anybody out there who wants to get one for themselves, so just a heads up. That's heads up out there. Heads up that they're available on the website.
Yep.
So grab one before they run out, because no Nintendo, they're never going to make it again. But
and for clarification, Hackchi2CE is the name of the program. HAKCHI2CE. Just put that in your Google machine. You will find it. I guarantee it. And also, If you Google that, you will find tutorials on YouTube that'll help you out. And like Greg said, they're not going to, unfortunately, tell you everything as far as, being able to use other emulators. But if you Google the problem that you're having, you should be able to find a solution.
Right, yeah. Like, if all you want to do is just simply add, like, NES games to NES Mini, Super NES games to Super NES Mini, then it's, like, very, very, very easy. Just like, the process of adding additional games for different systems is easy too.
Right.
Once you figure out what you have to do. So very cool. And inspired by that Mini, that inspired my decision as to what game that we're going to cover next in this podcast, because this is a game that has been available in ROM form for a while. But now that Joe and I have easy access to it, have easy access to it on our minis, we're like, this is a great chance to cover this game.
Mm-hmm.
So since it now got quote unquote officially released after all these years,
right.
So we're going to be looking at Star Fox 2, which is very close to being finished, but finished back in the 90s, but never got released. So, and is available on the Mini. If you do not have a Mini, that ROM's also freely available online to find. So
next episode's gonna be fun because there's a lot of rich history with this game.
Oh yes, yes for sure. Star Fox is a game I really love. It's not a game that holds up very well these days, I think, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But for what it is, when it came out, it's a great game. Definitely a fun game. Star Fox 2 is just more of the same, basically. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to playing it.
Yeah, should be a fun dive. So anyway, we're also working upon special guest episodes coming up in the future. And other stuff going on. So stay tuned. There's more stuff to come, hopefully. If you have any questions, feedback, comments, etc., feel free to check us out on Facebook, or you can also send me an email directly if you want to. That email is the SNESpodcast at yahoo.com. Joe, how can somebody reach you if they want to?
I can be reached numerous ways. You can find me on Facebook under Joseph Goebel. I have a public Facebook, and you're more than welcome to message me there. Also, Twitter at JOESUX30. And, for any reason you feel like you don't want to message the podcast, but you want to email me, is joesucks30@gmail.com. Just, drop a line, give us some feedback.
There must be... So there must be a story behind that name.
All right. So this is technically a story that should be told on PlayStation Power, but...
Oh, okay.
The relationship is close enough that we can tell it here. So back in, 96, 97, Final Fantasy VII and Gran Turismo released, months apart. And
yeah, both great games.
Exactly. So my buddies and I were in his basement taking turns playing each of these games. So I was racing in Gran Turismo and really whiffed it going into one of the turns. I mean, complete 360, way off, totally lost the race. Horrible. So
that's very easy to do in that game.
Very easy. So I put the controller down on the table and just kind of left it and walked away from it. I was kind of upset. If it was me now, I would have walked outside and probably smoked 2 or 3 cigarettes as quickly as possible. But so my buddy Kevin had actually picked up the controller and he inputted Joe Sucks, and that was my time was saved as Joe Sucks, and it was just one of those, like, since then it's kind of stuck. So
right,
yeah. Literally, Joe Sucks Anything is pretty much where you can find me at.
This is a little bit out the podcast, but but if I don't ask right now, I'm probably gonna forget about it. Did you ever play the remake to Final Fantasy VII?
All right, so I played up to getting Aerith back to her house.
Okay.
And pretty much did all the missions and side missions that I need to do, and I'm ready to progress to the next chapter. But I have not, because as far as I remember, I think I saw there was like 12 chapters total, and her chapter is chapter 8, which means I'm 3/4 of the way through the game, and I'm enjoying it, and I don't want to spoil that. And it was spoiled for me, unfortunately. I found out about the ending. I was not terribly happy with it. Obviously, with more context, I might be able to accept it a little more, so we'll see when I get there.
Yeah.
But I really feel like the ending that they gave was okay if they're basically giving a middle finger to us old school guys, and they're going in a new direction. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But and I was very critical when I played the demo. Like, I didn't like the fact that it shows that, like, Avalanche isn't really the terrorist group that they think they are, and it's actually Shinra behind everything. That kind of took away, for me, my experience with Final Fantasy VII, because, you're Avalanche, you're blowing these reactors up, and then to find out, nope, you're not doing any of that. It's all Shinra in the background causing that to happen. It's, I don't know. I love the game. It's beautiful, and I'm going to be sad when I finish it, but at the same time, I'm taking my time.
Well, this may inspire you a little bit. There is, you can replay the game again, because once you finish the game in normal mode, that unlocks hard mode for each mission. So you can go through each mission, and you have to go through each mission to, again, hard mode to get certain things that are only unlocked by playing through it on hard mode.
Gotcha.
So the game encourages you to go through the whole. Like, the game encourages you that way to go through the whole game again through playing hard mode. So, it also does. It also does things to help encourage that, because it's like all your levels and skills carry over, of course.
Right.
You gain skill points at twice the level. You gain XP points at 3 times the level.
Oh,
okay. And you also can do. And there's also and you can also skip the mini games if you want to as well.
Nice.
So if you want to skip that whole motorcycle chase sequence, you can.
Nice.
So,
okay.
But I've done it yet myself, but I definitely will go back to the game again at some point.
Yeah.
Hard mode, because it's like I missed one of the music tracks. I also missed the chance to get the last of the elementals.
Okay.
So I definitely do want to go through it again, because but yeah. So anyway, that's way off topic anyway. So
that's okay.
All right. So as always, we appreciate everybody listening to the podcast. Stay tuned for additional stuff, and we'll catch you again pretty soon. And please do not drive in real life like people drive in this game. That will not end well.
That's right. No tailgating.
But
bye.
Take care, all. Thanks again.
Have a good night.
Nintendo controls 80% of the video market. But no matter how you play the game, or which game you play, things definitely have come a long way since Pac-Man.
Now you're playing with power. Super power.